In today's world, where everyone strives for interaction and openness, there exists something paradoxical yet crucial: the art of being unavailable. From childhood, individuals are taught to be responsive, always ready to help, smile in any situation, and explain their actions even when no one asks. This deeply ingrained programming makes a person predictable and pliable, turning them into a puppet dancing to every word and gesture. But what does such accessibility offer? Does it bring peace and strength? Unfortunately, it often only amplifies vulnerability. Seeing the readiness to react to every impulse, others begin to exploit it for their gain, pressing on sore spots and manipulating emotions. The world is full of skilled puppeteers, but their power ends where accessibility vanishes. This is where a concept often underestimated comes into play. Unavailability is not an escape from the world, but a path to self-mastery, absolute self-control, and inner strength. It's not about building impenetrable walls and shutting out feelings, but about the ability to not react impulsively, recognizing that every reaction is a revelation, every emotion a vulnerability. Each outburst of anger, each attempt to justify oneself, each defensive reaction is a surrender of a piece of one's power. Instead of being an open book that anyone can read and exploit, one should consider how to become an enigma that others want to solve, how to learn to control reactions and emotions to avoid being a puppet in someone else's hands. The answer to this question may be the key to true freedom and power. Silence is not a manifestation of icy indifference, but a carefully calculated tactic. Enigmatic charm is not a lack of interest, but a powerful magnet that attracts attention. There are individuals who, upon entering a room, command the attention of everyone around them without uttering a single word. The secret to their influence lies not in loud pronouncements, but in the ability to keep their thoughts and feelings under lock and key. They don't trade the innermost secrets of their inner world for fleeting attention, don't rush to justify themselves, don't take a defensive stance, and don't try to please every passerby. These people have grasped a simple but important truth: the less you reveal, the more you intrigue. Human nature is such that we are irresistibly drawn to what we cannot fully control, to the unknown and elusive, to those who are not subject to external influence. That's why unapproachable people evoke genuine interest. They don't yield under pressure and know when to let go. And here we come again to the key point. The ability to let go is not a sign of defeat, but a symbol of newfound freedom. Sever relationships that suffocate you, quit jobs that drain your energy, end communication that has lost all meaning, get rid of the obsessive need to control everything, always be right, and gain universal approval. Remember, the harder you try to hold on, the more dependent you become, and dependence is the direct opposite of personal power. A person who constantly needs approval, recognition, and applause will never be truly unavailable. Refusing unnecessary explanations can be seen as a form of liberation. A person is not obliged to constantly justify their actions, does not have to prove anything to anyone, striving to maintain harmony in the soul. There is no need to convince others of one's integrity, as those who are prone to judgment have already formed a biased opinion and are only looking for confirmation of their established views. It is not worth supporting their prejudices. It is better to remain silent, allowing time to put everything in its place. In a world full of shouts and arguments, the ability to remain silent becomes a manifestation of strength and control. In a situation where everyone strives to be noticed, the one who remains in the shadows gains special power. Presence does not mean being everywhere, but rather the ability to be someone who cannot be ignored. This is achieved by ceasing excessive reaction, refusing to blindly follow other people's expectations and imposed stereotypes. Many mistakenly perceive unavailability as a manifestation of coldness, but in reality, it is a sign of emotional maturity. The one who reacts to everything is controlled by external circumstances, while the one who consciously chooses when and how to react controls their own life. This is not an escape from the world, but a manifestation of self-control, the ability to not succumb to provocations and avoid pointless discussions. Sometimes the greatest strength lies in the ability to remain still, so as not to become a negative character in someone else's story. When a person becomes unattainable, the world around them undergoes significant changes. Those puppeteers, used to pulling the strings, find themselves bewildered, as if deprived of their usual support. Those who found solace in venting their anger no longer find a pliable target, their venomous arrows scattering into emptiness. And those who dreamed of triumph, watching someone else's humiliation, face a gaping absence of the object of their pride. And so, freed from the shackles of others, a person continues on their path in silence and tranquility. It is impossible to put into words the peace that comes with the realization that there is no longer any need to justify oneself, prove one's point, or seek approval. However, this peace is the fruit of harsh trials. To attain it, one must break the chains of attachment, let go of the obsessive desire for understanding, love, and recognition. For as long as a person craves the warmth of others, they remain vulnerable, open to manipulation and the games of others. The secret to transformation lies in establishing boundaries, not loud declarations, not pathetic bargains, and not empty threats, but invisible lines that are felt at a deep level that a person respects, first and foremost in themselves. And when these boundaries become not just words but a way of life, those around you cannot help but notice. Yes, there will inevitably be losses along this path. Some will distance themselves, unable to withstand the new rules of the game, but this is not a loss but a gain of freedom, liberation from those who were holding you back, who were preventing you from breathing freely. The ability to let go becomes synonymous with freedom from the burden of other people's problems. It is impossible to take on the mission of saving every person you meet, just as it is impossible to become an inexhaustible source of emotional support for those who do not strive for personal growth. Don't turn into a bottomless well where others dump their negative experiences. It is necessary to consciously and carefully manage your energy because its reserves are limited. Wasting it on those who do not see its value, a person unwittingly diminishes their own dignity, trying to fit into an environment where they do not belong. Restraint, taciturnity, and calmness are not a sign of weakness, but rather a virtue of those who no longer need loud statements to be heard. It is a quality of people who put their own inner world above the desire to impress others. This inner peace has incredible power and attractiveness. Those who notice it yearn to acquire it, not understanding that it cannot be bought with money, copied, or stolen. It is formed through making difficult decisions, through the ability to put one's own interests first. The next time someone tries to throw you off balance, remember, a lack of reaction is a demonstration of strength. Refusing to participate in other people's games is already a victory. The absence of excuses is a way to conserve your energy. Silence becomes a sharp sword, self-control a reliable shield. When a person becomes unavailable, the world begins to look at them differently, not because they avoid problems, but because it is their conscious choice. A person who does not waste time on trifles acquires true value. One who does not strive to please everyone deserves respect. One who knows how to be silent controls the situation without saying a word. In this world, where everything seems simple, lies a deep truth. The ability to be unavailable is not an escape from reality, but a conscious choice of the moment and form of one's presence. It is not a dulling of feelings, but a wise recognition of what is worthy of an emotional response. It is not indifference, but a clear definition of life priorities. Realizing this truth opens your eyes to the fact that inner strength has always been a personal asset, which is sometimes thoughtlessly wasted on others. The question arises, is it worth continuing to blindly react to external stimuli, allowing the world to dictate your essence? Or is it time to decide for yourself what deserves attention, what has an impact, and what shapes your personality? This choice, seemingly insignificant, can drastically change your life. Making a decision happens in silence, without unnecessary words and seeking approval. Being unavailable is a manifestation of self-love, an affirmation of your independence from the desires of others. It is a statement to the world The right to communicate with me belongs not to you, but to me. And this right is sacred. It must be protected and defended. If someone tries to invade your personal space without an invitation, the best answer is silence. Not out of hatred, but because it no longer matters. This is the true victory. The ability to be unavailable is not a manifestation of arrogance or coldness, but the result of gaining control over one's own life, which is a priceless gift. Awareness of the need for change often begins with a subtle discomfort, an inner voice calling for transformation. This feeling, both anxious and inspiring, indicates a desire to break out of the vicious circle of reactions and the desire to please others. There comes a moment when the need arises for a profound re-evaluation of one's own essence, to understand the energy a person radiates, gaining control over oneself. Those around us perceive far more than meets the eye. They grasp not only the words spoken, but also how a person occupies space, how they manage their time, and the confidence they exude. The psychological underpinning of this phenomenon lies in people's ability to sense things subconsciously. A constant need for attention and approval is unmistakably perceived by others, making a person vulnerable. Inaccessibility, in turn, implies the ability to establish healthy emotional boundaries. It stems not from selfishness, but from self-respect. There is no need to dedicate everyone and anyone to one's thoughts, plans, and innermost feelings. Selectivity is not a manifestation of closed-offness, but a means of protection. Excessive openness deprives a person of value. When everyone has access to them, they cease to be special. The ability to establish a healthy emotional distance is a sign of a mature personality. Refusing without excessive apologies, managing one's time without remorse, and enjoying solitude without feeling abandoned. These are facets of a mature individual. After all, loneliness is not a stigma, but a state of mind, dictated not by external circumstances, but by an internal choice, while emotional dependence, on the contrary, deprives a person of freedom and independence. It is equally important to consciously approach the choice of people to whom one opens the doors of their inner world. Not everyone is worthy of sharing the burden of your experiences and anxieties. At times, excessive candor can turn into vulnerability, so it is important to protect your feelings, thereby showing compassion for yourself. This is not erecting an impregnable fortress around the heart, but rather a caring attitude toward the fragile inner world. Sometimes silence becomes the most convincing answer, the absence of an expected reaction, the rejection of meaningless disputes, calmness and composure. All this disarms manipulators and provocateurs, depriving them of power over your emotions. After all, people often seek to throw you off balance in order to feel their superiority. But not finding the desired reaction, they lose control, and self-control becomes a powerful weapon in the struggle for personal boundaries and peace of mind. The reality that many try to ignore is that a personality created to please others ultimately becomes a heavy burden. An image adopted to conform to a certain social group, to gain recognition, or to avoid disagreements may have been useful at one time. However, if this image no longer reflects the true essence of a person, then holding on to it only leads them away from themselves. It is worth acknowledging that manifesting authenticity requires certain sacrifices, but the price for living away from one's true nature is much higher. This leads to emotional exhaustion, which develops gradually and imperceptibly. Abandoning a false personality and demonstrating the real me is no easy task. Inevitably, some people will turn away, but it is important to realize that these connections are no longer genuine, as they are based on an artificial version of the person. In the end, what remains is the most valuable: people who accept you without embellishment, relationships built on sincerity, and inner peace that does not require external approval. Inner integrity is felt in everything, in manners, in words, and even in mere presence. This is what makes a person strong and gives them confidence. By directing energy, usually wasted on impulsive responses, a person gains the opportunity to invest it in their own development and creation. By focusing on personal growth and creating something meaningful that does not require constant justification, an individual strengthens their identity. The ability to retreat in time and refuse to participate in hopeless situations becomes a manifestation of willpower, which does not go unnoticed by others and evokes deserved respect. Realizing this, it is worth asking yourself what habits and behavior patterns need to be abandoned in order to free oneself from dependence on other people's reactions and the constant need to adapt to others. How to regain the true strength that one unwittingly transfers to others, seeking to please them. Becoming inaccessible does not mean closing your heart to the world, but on the contrary, opening your eyes to your own needs and desires. This is not detachment from society, but an approach to oneself, to one's inner self. This deep inner connection and emotional clarity are far more valuable than any approval that may come from the outside. Understanding the importance of inaccessibility, it is necessary to pay attention to another, rarely discussed, but no less important aspect, the difference between self-control and the suppression of one's own feelings. It's not about being silent out of fear or avoiding conflict, but about consciously choosing when to act, when to speak, and most importantly, when to remain silent. Suppression stems from deep-seated fear, while self-control grows from awareness and clarity of mind. A person who suppresses their feelings and emotions subjects themselves to internal poisoning, while one who possesses self-control, on the contrary, strengthens their inner power. This fundamental difference has a defining impact on life. It's worth considering. A person who remains silent out of fear accumulates destructive energy of anger within themselves, while one who is silent for strategic reasons multiplies their inner strength. It is here that the little-studied but possessing tremendous transformative potential concept of active patience comes onto the scene. Have you noticed that one of the most characteristic traits of people who seem imperturbable and unapproachable is their unhurriedness? They do not succumb to the impulse of immediate reaction, defense, revenge, or justification, as they possess the wisdom of understanding that time, if used wisely, becomes their faithful ally. Active patience should not be confused with passivity. It is, rather, a carefully calculated calculation based on the awareness that haste leads to nothing good, since no action committed under the influence of a fleeting impulse has longevity. A person acting impulsively takes a rash step today, only to bitterly regret it tomorrow. In contrast, a person with patience dedicates time to observing what is happening in order to act precisely when it is truly necessary and appropriate. It is this gulf that separates those who go with the flow, succumbing to external circumstances, and those who confidently steer their ship of life towards their intended goal. However, cultivating patience in oneself is no easy task, requiring, first and foremost, unwavering faith in one's own strength and in the correctness of the chosen path. This is the art of doing without the obsessive desire to prove something to someone, the ability to remain silent in moments when they are pushing you to speak, and the ability to remain calm in the face of uncertainty, when the body and mind crave immediate answers. This inner struggle, hidden from prying eyes, is the true measure of a person's emotional strength. In this regard, it is appropriate to refer to the concept of managing one's own value. After all, it is the person who is the creator of their value, and this is not just a matter of self-confidence, but a very specific strategy that determines how they manage their time, emotions, and energy. If someone easily takes possession of attention without making an effort, the person thereby devalues themselves. If someone has unlimited access to their resources simply because they are nearby or show persistence, they give too much without receiving adequate compensation in return. The true essence of a person is manifested not in loud statements, but in the decisions they make, in the boundaries they set, in what they are willing to endure, and in what they prefer to turn a blind eye to. But most importantly, the value of a person is revealed in the ability to let go, even when it causes unbearable pain. If you dig deeper, it is worth paying attention to the fundamental difference between manifestation and accessibility. Manifestation is the art of behaving with dignity, the ability to make an impression without striving for intrusive attention, the ability to exert influence effortlessly, simply by being in the room or participating in a conversation. Accessibility, on the other hand, implies constant presence, willingness to always answer and give oneself without reservation. Mixing these concepts leads to exhaustion, because the one who is always at hand is devalued, and the one who knows how to manifest themselves remains in memory forever. People are often afraid of losing connections if they are not constantly available, but the truth is that by preserving their value, they, on the contrary, attract truly meaningful relationships. The fear of loss turns them into emotional slaves, depriving them of freedom of choice. It is the fear of losing that makes a person a hostage to what they no longer need. And here we come to the important concept of emotional reputation. Reputation is not arrogance and by no means a manifestation of coldness or indifference, but a deep awareness of one's own value, a refusal to settle for less. This is the absence of the need to beg for explanations or seek answers, the cessation of waiting for understanding from those who are not able to appreciate you. And this is perfectly justified, since the purpose of life is not to prove something to others, but to live one's own unique life. To live your life means surrounding yourself with people who sincerely see and understand you, walking hand in hand with those who respect moments of silence, who do not try to fill them with speculation or demands. Indeed, silence is not a punishment, but a message, and if someone is unable to read it, they are not meant to understand anything else. Equally important is the ability to refuse, even if it causes pain. Consciously rejecting what does not align with inner needs, even if it seems like an enticing opportunity, especially in moments of strong need. One should remember that not everything that glitters is suitable for the chosen path. True self-mastery lies in the ability to say no to what is desired, realizing that one deserves something more. At this point, solitude reaches a completely new level of understanding. It is not just about physical or communicative inaccessibility, but about a conscious choice of the circle of people who will be allowed into one's personal space. But what lies at the heart of this decision? It is logic that prioritizes emotional balance, inner peace, and personal development. To be inaccessible in the true sense means to gain resilience, to develop a kind of immunity to past traumas. It is an awareness of one's own worth, independent of the presence or absence of others. It is accepting the inevitability of loss and being able to calmly contemplate what once caused anxiety. It is the ability to experience pain without destructive consequences while maintaining inner peace. And, most importantly, it is a constant choice of oneself without unnecessary drama or ostentatious behavior. When a person reaches such a state, the transformation affects not only themselves, but also their environment. They cease to attract those who seek to exploit their weaknesses and avoid connections based on shortcomings. Their inner energy is no longer depleted by pleas for help, but is filled with strength, stability, and self-sufficiency, which has a transformative effect on everything around them. If a person feels this transformation, they should continue to move in the chosen direction, because true freedom is hidden behind inaccessibility. At the very moment when it seems that all the depths of the soul have been explored, something even more refined, powerful, and intimate opens up. Serenity from the realization that there is no need for anyone's understanding. This is the highest degree of self-possession, consisting not only in the ability to choose words, but also in accepting the fact that there is no need to be understood. The world tirelessly demands explanations, classifications, and definitions, but a person comes into this world not to be deciphered, like an instruction manual. Their purpose is to live their life, remaining a mystery, a being that does not need justification. It is important to realize that this is not a manifestation of arrogance, but a depth of soul, an awareness that comes from immersing oneself so deeply that superficial relationships and empty approval no longer bring satisfaction. Having experienced much, a person no longer wants to demean themselves to conform to generally accepted standards. Having experienced a wide range of feelings, they can no longer exist pretending to be frivolous. The completion of this stage of life is not just arriving at the final destination, but rather acquiring a new way of moving forward. There is no longer a need for someone to push, because now everyone sets the pace of their own progress. There are also no longer those who try to lead, as choosing a direction becomes a personal decision. There is no longer a desire to run to be noticed, because those who really should see will notice even in silence. If doubts still torment, if stumbles are sometimes felt, if there are moments when reaction precedes thought, one should not indulge in self-flagellation, because this is an integral part of the process. Achieving a state of inaccessibility is not a fleeting goal, but a daily choice that requires recognizing difficulties to avoid falling and losing one's bearings, but continuing to move forward. Before saying goodbye, the author makes a request to write the phrase, "My silence is not absence, but dominance." They express a desire to see how many people decide to live, relying on this power. If this appeal touched some strings of the soul, made you think, or reminded you of that version of yourself that no longer wants to be just a person reacting to the world, then you are invited to join, because this is about the unspoken, about what is felt in the depths of the heart, about what no one tells, but what can change everything. The author does not say goodbye with the standard, "see you soon," but with silence, silence filled with meaning, silence that leaves room for self-filling. After all, this is not the end of the video, but a personal beginning that no one can touch. The author disappears.